Welcome to the Franchise Woman Podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles. I'm here with my friend and co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So, Tracy, we have a very special guest today. Her name is Brittney Lincoln. Brittney is a partner in Limitless Franchise Growth, FSO, and she's the CEO and founder of Females in Franchising, a dynamic platform dedicated to empowering women in the franchising industry. With over 13 years of experience expanding home services, beauty, and medical franchises, Brittney has built a reputation as a connector, educator, and strategist in the franchising world. She is passionate about providing a space for women to collaborate, learn from industry experts, and grow both personally and professionally. Brittney specializes in merging and launching brands, developing scalable franchise strategies, and ensuring responsible franchising that benefits both franchisees and the industry at large. Brittney, welcome to the Franchise Woman Podcast.
Thank you so very much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
So, Brittney, I was having a look at your LinkedIn profile, and I happened to notice that you pretty much launched into entrepreneurship almost just about fresh out of college. What gave you that fearlessness to do that?
Yeah, so I do have to share. I graduated college in 2009, which we can all think back to. Not a great time to be looking for a job, although I had gotten my degree in business and management. And I had worked in retail all through college, and I actually worked for a small women owned, it was a mother and a daughter clothing boutique in Denver, Colorado, where I live and where I went to school. And so I think it was a combination of a few things. One, I have a very successful mom that I've always looked up to. Two, having gone to business school, you do write business plans, you take classes in accounting and finance, and you learn all the things, and that was very, very, fresh in my mind. Three, having seen these people that I had worked for, right, kind of build out this clothing boutique, this mother and daughter, and I did it. I mean, as much as I worked for them and sold clothes, right? You're a sponge, especially when you're young, right? You're there to soak things up. So I'd say that kind of all came together. But I do also have to say, I think there was a little bit of just being young and maybe, I don't know if dumb's the right word, but I think I was hating working in insurance, and I just, no offense to the underwriters out there, but I was like, I cannot reserve myself to sitting at a desk and writing insurance plans all day long. And there were no other jobs. And so I did what in my mind at the time was like, of course, what is anyone going to do? I should just start my own business.
A
But
business.
I will say, I do look back now, and I'm proud of that girl that I was. At this point, we opened my store in 2010, 15 years ago, and I'm so thankful that I did take that leap and that I did dive into entrepreneurship, and maybe that I didn't know all of the things that I know now because I might not have done it, because I learned so much. I learned so much. I joke that I actually was thinking about staying and getting my MBA because the economy was so bad, right? And University of Denver, where I went, does a 4+1. I could have gotten it in just a year. And I always tell people this. I started studying for the GMAT, and as soon as I saw geometry was on the test, I was out. Um, so when I got into the working world and all of that, I like to joke that I got my real world MBA by starting a business. And so, I still learned so much from it, and am so grateful that I did jump in and I did take, that leap of faith.
I love this story. What popped in my head, Brittney, was um, being naive, which we are when we're young, right? Really allows us to take risks that if we were much more informed, we might not have done, right? So you jumped in, took a risk at the perfect time, and then were willing to learn as you went, right? And to me, that's one of the best ways to learn. pre-colleges and universities, that's how people learn to do business or farm or whatever, is by jumping in and watching others and then starting to do it themselves. So I love this story.
Yeah.
So expand on a little bit on what limitless franchise growth does, and how your experience as an entrepreneur yourself has assisted you as a partner in Limitless.
Yeah. So I will say, I feel like it's worth sharing this because maybe this will help people. That business that I started 15 years ago didn't work out. I did a lot of research. I mean, we opened a gift store in downtown Denver because there were no Hallmarks. There was no place to buy your coworker a card or a baby gift. And so I will say again, what business school taught me is, try to find a need that you can fill, but it got messy quick. We had some flooding issues. I had a business partner that was a dear friend at the time, and we didn't see eye to eye. And so, again, learned some lessons, not just about running a business, but for me, friendship and business didn't mix. We are friends today, but at
Oh,
the
good.
time, had some disagreements. And so that led me into advertising sales for a brief period of time. And then I fell into franchising like so many people because I had an uncle that was a consultant that got me my first job with a home service brand. And so I do want to say that I've worked for home service brands. I spent about half of my career in franchising with home service. I spent about half with brick and mortar and boutique fitness. And so for the last 6 years, I've worked on a team where we've helped some of the brands that were underneath the company we work for literally go from one location to hundreds, 23 locations to over 1,000. And it's been a fun ride. And I mean, I've very much been on the front end of this, but also, staying in touch with franchisees and, being a part of a franchisor, you learn, right, what's working, what's not working, how best to support people. And so last July, my coworkers and I basically stepped out of the company that we were in, formed Limitless Franchise Growth because we had taken so many of these brands, albeit under one umbrella, and launched them. We knew that our knowledge, our expertise, and we all kind of, I have my service background. Some of my partners have backgrounds in hair care and tax prep and things like that. We knew that we could be of such service to new and emerging brands that maybe have founders doing the sales, or maybe have someone that was working in ops and they got placed into the sales. And so we wanted to stay working together. I do like to share that we've really enjoyed. Some of my partners have been together for 10 years. I've been with them for the last 6-7 years. But we also really did want to take all of this knowledge that we've gained throughout our franchising careers and help new and emerging franchisors scale in the right way. I know that responsible franchising is such a buzzword right now, but that really is the mission that we have at Limitless Franchise Growth. Is yes, we want to become your franchise development, sales, and awarding team, but we also want to be guides and coaches, and we want to help these emerging franchisors avoid some of the pitfalls and potholes and things that we've watched, other brands that we've helped, or even just, you've both been in the industry a long time, that we all know some of these war stories, right, that are out there. And some of these, founders and new emerging brands, if this is their first foray into, franchising, they don't know any of that. So we specialize in helping new and emerging franchise brands either come to market with franchising, which is something that we can do, or if they're already franchised, right, we become their franchise development sales arm, and really want to help them find the right people and scale responsibly and not grow too quick, but also not bring the wrong people into their family.
Brittney, you mentioned about scaling the right way. Can you talk about some of the pitfalls that you've seen? Like what are the wrong ways that people scale? Is there a wrong way?
Yes. I believe there's a few wrong ways, and again, it's part of what I think we really want to sort of spread the word of responsible franchising, right? Of saying, hey, Just because someone took your money and made you a franchise doesn't mean you're ready to start selling franchises and bringing people into the family. So first and foremost, I will just say for us, we always look at the founder and, are they someone that really can continue to lead the brand, right? Like I find that there's the founders that are like the true entrepreneur, high flying, right? Ultra creative. They're not always the person to take you to the promised land and be like, I always like to use like the COO, right? Like a lot of times you need that person. So, but a good founder story, right? A good why for why they started their business. There's so many amazing, great whys is something we look at. So I do think you have to have the right why. And if you're a founder and you are not into org charts and things of that nature, then get yourself a really good COO that can go out and execute.
Yeah.
I know this might sound silly to some people, but one of the biggest things we look at and talk about is profitability, right? Is your business profitable? Are your franchisees profitable? If the answer to that is no, A, don't franchise your business until it's profitable, right? How are you going to attract people? That's not fair to bring people in. B, if you've launched, and what I love about franchising is you don't have to, right? You can pause, you can hit the timeout button. We've helped brands do that, right? Sometimes you do get ahead of your skis and it's like, hey, timeout. Let's focus on these people we've brought in. Let's help make them profitable. But profitability is so important for you, your franchisees. Like that's what's going to keep, the flywheel going. And then infrastructure and support. I mean, for us, and it doesn't mean you have to have 50 people working at your corporate office, but who's supporting franchisees? Because as we all know, right, anyone that's looking at buying a franchise, I like to say it's entrepreneurship light, right? Like you're still doing something that most people won't. I do believe people that buy franchises deserve a lot of credit because they're still becoming a business owner, right? They're in business for themselves, not by themselves. It's still hard and scary. But how successful they can be is often very closely tied to the franchisor. And did they give them a good business model? Did they give them good training? Do you have enough people to support that person ongoing? So those would be the big things of what I see of it. Either means like you're going to scale and scale quickly because you've got a great founder, you've got a great operating person, you've got people are making money, you've got the support. Like that's the recipe for rocket ship. If any one of those things are missing, doesn't mean they won't grow, it won't be successful, but a lot of times, right, this is where you see some of those starts and stops, or for sure, I would say the house of cards that we're probably all very familiar with is you have one location in New York City that's crushing it and doing well, and you're selling all these franchises off of that, and then it's like, will it work outside of New York City? Are there enough people to support these umpteen franchisees you just brought into the family? That's what we want to help people avoid. And some of the brands we've looked at over the last year, we've said, you're great, your brand is great, but you need to open a few more in other markets and then we'll talk. Or you need to get your AUV up and your profitability up and then we'll talk. And we try to set them on a path that here's what you can do. Even if you don't ever work with us, we want to leave people better than we found them, right? And say, here's what you can do so that you can try to scale responsibly either with us or with someone else.
I love the comment you made, and it was so quick, but I had to write it down. Getting ahead of your skis. I mean, obviously you're a skier or you're in the mountains anyway, there in Denver, close to the mountains. Because we work with franchisors every day. And we see that frequently. We call it stages of growth, where they're acting like they're a true plug and play, a bigger organization, and they're trying to give the franchisee everything possible, but it's costing them a massive amount of resources that they're not ready to do. So, you know, our belief, and I don't know if it's yours too, Brittney, is a slower growth initially is a better way to go. So we can then build our resources to put in that infrastructure that you talked about. So I think frequently we get ahead of ourselves, as do most entrepreneurs, because we're visionaries, right? We're already out there. We already see it perfect. And so we have to sometimes rein it in. And that's where our ops people come in and they rein us back and tell us, no, we're not ready for that yet, kind of thing. So thank you for sharing that. And I love that. I'm going to do something with that. Don't get ahead of your skis.
Don't get ahead. It won't ever turn out good, I promise you, in business or on the ski hill.
No, no, I'm already seeing the tumble and F, right? So let me ask you, I love what you guys are up to at Limitless Franchise Growth. But you also have a project that you're launching, Females in Franchising. Tell us a little bit more about that project and how that became such a passion for you.
Yes. So I will start by saying, and I think both of you have experienced this, that when I fell into franchising, as I shared 13 years ago, not only did I not know anyone, I was the only female salesperson. I was one of very few females that worked at the brand. And then as I started traveling and going to conferences, I was looking around and noticing like I'm actually one of the only females in this room, let alone like, forget sales or anything like that. And so, um, mentorship I think is so important. There's a stat I always love to share. It's a little bit more related to working in the corporate world or working as a franchisor, and this does apply to men too, but people that have mentors are 5 times more likely to get promoted than if you don't. And I think as women, we naturally seek out communities and sisterhood and things like that, but we don't always get it, especially working in an industry like franchising, which there are a lot more women working in franchising today, but we still only make up, I think, less than 30% of like the C-suite and executive positions. So we're still underrepresented. And if you look at franchise ownership, at least, the stats are kind of hard. The IFA tries to put a lot of stuff out there, but from what I've seen, I think it's actually that minorities, which women fall into that category, only own about 30% of the, I think as of today, there's almost 800,000 individual franchise businesses, out there. And so we're underrepresented in a lot of ways. And I've lived that through my career. But over the last 6-7 years that I've been on this team that is now Limitless Franchise Growth, I have a few female coworkers that have been mentors, that have been friends, that have been that person that I call, when something trips me up, right? We're always learning, candidate asks you a question you haven't been asked in 13 years, and their support and their friendship is priceless. But I think back to that girl that I was 13 years ago, and I know because I meet people at conferences, I've met so many amazing women like the two of you that there are still women out there that are the only female on their sales team that work remote, that don't get to go into an office and see people. And there are some great networks out there that exist within franchising. There are for sure communities and networks out there for female entrepreneurs and then female executives. But what I feel and what I think both of you know and anyone within franchising knows is we're this unique little middle ground, right? Like if you own a franchise, you don't quite feel like you fit in with the entrepreneur groups because you do have your franchisor. And if you're an executive working in franchising, maybe you go through some of the same things as people working at Fortune 100, 500 companies, but right, we've got our own lingo. The Federal Trade Commission regulates us, right? We have all these nuances. And so I started joining some of these groups and I started recognizing that there's not really a place for women in franchising that could bring us together on a platform, right? I know we're so overconnected via technology, but Slack channels and DMs and things like that, right? LinkedIn is really the one platform. And I will say, and you've probably both experienced this, franchising is so collaborative. I see people all the time post on LinkedIn, whether it's a franchisor, whether it's a vendor, whether it's a consultant, and people that are their direct competitors are chiming in and saying, hey, try this, try that. Have you talked to this person? You should connect with so-and-so. It's one of the things I love most about our industry. Like, I love the other FSOs. I'm really good friends with some of the founders of the other FSOs. We see each other at conferences. I do not view them as, my competition, but we can learn so much from each other. And we oftentimes, right, so many of us work from home, see each other a few times a year at conferences. I wanted to create this space that would be an online membership platform. So, a little bit of pay to play, but I want it to be super accessible. This is not like a high ticket, only, going to be for people willing to spend hundreds of dollars a month. A platform where I can bring, like, I know a lot of women, but I also don't. I know there's a lot of women out there in franchising doing amazing things that I haven't yet met. And then there are those women that don't have, the support system or the network that I have. So kind of
Brittany,
melding a few things, together to create, it will be an online membership platform where people can connect, kind of like a Facebook. You're going to have a profile, there'll be chat rooms, want to bring experts in. I want to create a mentorship program where people that are younger and newer in the industry can find, that mentor business bestie. And really, I want us to learn from each other more, and I want us to lift each other up more, because I do believe my tagline is we don't compete with each other, we complete each other. I think when we have that mindset, um, as women, we're so much stronger together than if we, take the, hey, I'm a lone wolf, let me do it on my own.
nice. So what would be the 3 bullet point takeaways that that the platform would provide, or that you're hoping to provide through the platform?
So one, just a network, right? Literally a network of, like, beyond LinkedIn, of a network where that every woman that has signed up to be a member of Females in Franchising, I'm making it. I want there to be some reciprocity here, and so I'm saying, if you join, this is not just what do I get from the community. This is what can I give. I'm actually going to have one of my areas in Circle is going to be a give and get wall. So when you join, you're going to fill out your membership profile of who you are, how you fell into franchising, because that's a fun, icebreaker. And then you need to go and post on the give and get wall. What can you give to the community? Not just what are you looking to get. Two, I really actually love the idea. I want to have a job board. I think that franchising, again, is so tight knit, and I do see people doing it on LinkedIn, but I love the idea of being able to connect people and maybe help them find their next great opportunity. And so whether you're an executive and you're posting in there, hey, we're looking to fill this position, and whether someone reaches out to you on there or tells you about someone else. But I mean, look, let's be fair. Sometimes people are in jobs and they're not being appreciated, and they're not being, valued the way that they should be. So my plan is to let people that are job seekers, but maybe they're not ready to leave their current position, allow the platform to post on their behalf a little bit of their background, but more anonymously, and say, hey, we've got this member. Here's how many years they've been in the industry. Let us know. And I can make some of those connections behind the scenes, because sometimes, right, we don't always want to post on LinkedIn that we're looking for a new position, right? So I think that could be an amazing, resource for people to find great women, and just, again, to, like, lift each other up. And then the third thing, the mentorship. I really do. I'm toying with, do I do it where, like, every Thursday at 4 p.m., right, there is someone in a Zoom room that can mentor you and chat with you, or even we have, topics, like, one of my coworkers is a savant when it comes to building territory and how to, like, that might be something that someone could really benefit from. I've got some great connections, like, on the vendor side. It could be a way for vendors to highlight, the services that they provide. But I think I want to do, like, mentorship minutes, right? Where you could just log in Thursday at 4, and there will be someone in there that you could just chat with anything about, or have, some sort of topic that is assigned to it.
Address.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice. I think this point about connection, especially for women, is so important. You brought it up a minute ago, Brittany, that many of us are working remote, and we get together an occasional conference, but we don't even, those that are employees or executives aren't seeing their team but a couple of times a year, maybe quarterly if they're lucky. So that we're all hungry for connection, especially women. It feeds the soul, it gives us energy, and then all the rest is icing on the cake, right? The other thing, as you were talking, I'm getting a picture of women who can come together and talk authentically and honestly. I'm having trouble with this. This is driving me nuts, blah, blah, blah. We're going to save some marriages with females in franchising, because they're not going to go home and talk to them. That's
Right?
right. Look what you're doing. You're saving families, Brittney.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need, it's funny, my husband, I love him so much and he knows enough now after we've been together for 10 years. He probably could, bring someone through the educational process on one of the brands. But sometimes, one, to your point, Rebecca, of like women, there is just something really powerful about women coming together and just a sisterhood, right?
Hmm.
But two, just everyone speaking the same lingo, right? I don't talk a lot about work with my friends that have traditional corporate jobs because I know they're not going to get it. And so as cheesy as it sounds, like that's just having a call where we just all go around and maybe it's like a dump, right? Maybe it's like a wind down Wednesday of here's what I'm dealing with and knowing that everyone on the Hollywood squares gets right where you're coming from or knows what sometimes I go to these women in business networking groups and I start using vernacular that both of you would be like, yeah, of course. And people are like, whoa, like franchising has its own language. Like I don't franchisor, franchisee, FDD, right? So I think that too, right? Of yes, like that community, that sisterhood, but also as cheesy as it sounds, just being with people that get it.
Get
Like
it.
that is sometimes just so, like you said, good for your soul, right? And your partner can't always get it.
Hmm. Okay.
So I have a burning question. Can
Okay.
we put business on the shelf for just 1 minute? You mentioned about your mom. I want to hear a little about your life. You said that your mom was a successful businesswoman. Can you talk about that for a minute? I want to hear what inspired you.
Yeah, so I will say corporate businesswoman, to just to define that. But she didn't go to college, went for a few years and dropped out, fell into the insurance brokerage industry. And I mean, talk about very few women. I mean, one of the only women like worked her way up, got to the level of managing director with a company called Marsh, which is one of the largest insurance brokerage firms in the world. And so she did go back to school when I was in middle school and got her degree. That was something she wanted to do while she was working. I mean, achieved a level of, I think there were times where she had hundreds of people working for her. And I'm an only child, so watching, right, her build this career over time was super inspiring just to see what she was able to accomplish being, one of the only women that was, at her position. She's retired now. And so she only lives about 10 minutes from my house. We spend a lot of time together still. She traveled a ton when I was growing up. She had clients with projects all over the world and I got to travel with her. But I mean, she was pretty impressive. So I will say they were big I'll say heels because she wore heels every day of the office, which I also don't know. That is so not me. I'm literally in my slippers right now. Like, she was big heels to fill, but that was definitely I would say a guiding light and a driving force for me of just of wanting to make her proud and wanting to be, as successful as she was, right? I feel like, if you're close with your mom, you usually don't want to let your mom down. So yeah, she's my best friend. She is um, the person I still, look up to. And she did a lot. I mean, she worked really hard to take care of me, and I so appreciate that. And I think she balanced it very well and very gracefully. And I think I do okay with that. I have two boys. I try to balance, but it's tough. I'm more of a you prioritize when you need to, right?
Yeah.
Like there are times where family has to take priority. And for me, that's usually like I have a cutoff of, 5 or 6 p.m. and the laptop's closed and the phone is down and it's family time until my boys go to bed. And that works really well for me. And then the laptop usually comes back out and I'm clickety clacking away. And then mornings are the same thing. But there's also times where work has to take some precedence. And I think so long as you don't let either get too far out of whack, you do your best as a working mom.
For
Nice.
sure. What a wonderful role model she was for you. Um, she cleared the path in many ways and built in a set of belief systems within you where you could take these risks and know it can be done. You right? You just chose entrepreneurship and franchising and business ownership rather than the corporate ladder climbing. And each of us has a different path. She knew what hers was, and she did it really, really beautifully. I hate to do this, but we're getting close to time here, and I want to ask a couple of more questions. When you look at the world of franchising, um, if there was something you could change or something you think those in the world of franchising should be paying closer attention to, what would that be?
Geez.
Good question.
I know that is a good question. Well,
It's
and
a
it's
really
interesting
good.
too, because I think about like as a franchisor, I will say I think overall my dream, my goal would be that all franchisors do it responsibly, right? Really, really do what they say they're going to do. And I mean, look, there are tons, and I want to say the majority of franchisors do it right and have the support and have the training and have every intention of like we are in a partnership, right? Like I'm getting a royalty. I want the better you do, the better I do. We're in this together. But I think sometimes when they scale too quickly, when they grow, you can lose sight of that. So I would say just continuing on, the trend of responsible franchising, that all franchisors, old and new, focus on that because um, the people that buy in, right, as you both well know and I've experienced, sometimes they're putting their life savings into it, um,
Yeah,
and they're still taking a risk on that franchisor. Now, on the other side of things, and there is a lot of talk about this, and I try to speak this truth to every candidate I work with. Just because you bought into a franchise doesn't mean it's mailbox money, doesn't mean that you get to kick your feet up on the desk. And so I think more franchisees need to be introspective.
yeah.
I think they need to connect with their peers because if you, for some reason, don't think your franchisor is shooting you straight or giving you the best advice, well, then talk to the person that's killing it because they have the same business model as you. Now, markets and things like that, yes, can be different. But I think that's one of the biggest things that probably not enough franchisees do is reach out to the most successful, like those should be the people you want to learn from. It's not that your franchisor isn't great and shouldn't be giving you support. They should be. That's what you bought into, and they need to hold up their end of the bargain. But I always tell everyone, and this, I mean, look, this is Tony Robbins. He says this all the time. Execution is everything, right?
Mhm.
You can know, right? You can have tons of knowledge and you can know tons of things, right? And you've probably both come into contact with those people that know everything about a franchise or research it to the nth degree. But can you execute? Because at the end of the day, right, when I look at my past and when I look at the people that are in the top third of systems, they execute well. And they deserve the credit as much as the franchisor and they gave them the business model and all the things. They're getting up every day and they're running their business in a way that they're having success. And I think sometimes it's easy for people that aren't succeeding to say, oh, well, they're lucky or they must have a good market and it's like, no, give credit where credit's due, right? It's them.
Mhm. Agreed. Agreed. I love it. Before Tracy gets into her last questions, um, you have some sound bites that are just adorable.
Yeah.
The
It's funny. Yeah. I
when
sort of,
you said Hollywood Squares, which instantly I knew what you were talking about. You're on Zoom and you got these, but you're too young to know about Hollywood
I've
Squares. But
seen Hollywood Squares.
I
have
think they have
you?
an updated version of it. I think they have like a modern.
And
Oh,
I
do
do think
they?
they made
Okay,
a
well, I don't
comeback.
watch
I think you're right,
TV, but
Tracy. I think they redid it. What's old is new. So
oh, that's hilarious. Okay, I didn't know that. And this is a whole nother conversation. This is a statement, probably a rhetorical one. Um, this sensible franchising, responsible franchising is definitely a bandwagon we've all are jumping on because we understand the importance of it. I would like someone to define that, clearly define it so we can then measure that. Okay, responsible franchising equals boom, 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 these 8 things. And then we can say, yes, yes, indeed, this is responsible. And for me, one of those is the franchisee's ROI. We need to be focusing on the ROI for the franchisee, and then we've done some kind of a responsible. But that's a whole nother conversation. We may have to have you back.
I
You
like
look,
that. I think that could be a whole conversation.
it's a whole conversation. What is it? We keep using that word, but what is it? How do we measure it and define it so we can do a better job?
And I don't know if it's fair, I'll just say really quickly, and I don't know if it's fair to apply the same set of metrics or KPIs to a brand that's been around for 10 years with hundreds of locations to, but I do like your idea because I will say I feel like that buzzword is getting thrown around a lot lately. But to your point, what does that mean,
What does
right?
it mean?
And I think there's,
Mhm.
in my mind, right, there almost have to be categories. Um,
Agreed.
for that, right? Of what stage of franchising are you in? How many open do you have? Even investment, right? You mentioned ROI. I mean, there are brands that are 10 times the initial investment of others. And so can you really compare and contrast those?
Yeah, so there has to be something, and I think you're right. It has to do with their stage of growth because you expect something different from what we call a stage 3 plug and play franchisor versus an emerging franchisor with less than 20, 25, 30 units, right? The expectations are different. Therefore, responsible franchising is different in each of those stages of growth. All right, Tracy, any other questions you have or comments that you have?
I don't have any question, but I just want to say that I really love your energy, Brittany. And there's a few things hit me while you've been talking. Um, First of all, when Rebecca mentioned in your opening bio that you're a communicator, an educator, a strategist, that is so dead on. That is so perfect for you. It's spot on. The other thing that really struck me about you is that you don't let anything go to waste. Like every little bit from your customer service experience, from your mentorship or inspiration from your mother to the woman who you work for with the daughter in the clothing store, to your educational background, like whatever you learn, it's like you store it somewhere in you and you then
Mhm.
synthesize it and then apply it. Like you let no bit of information go to waste. You use everything to help others. And I can really, really appreciate that about you.
Which
Thank you.
goes along with what you said, Brittany. Execution is everything. So you garnered all this wisdom as Tracy's talking about and then executed on it. One final question. How do people get hold of you? How can they learn more about females in franchising as well as limitless franchise growth?
Yep. So for Limitless, literally our website is www.limitlessfranchisegrowth.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Instagram. And if you look me up on LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me that way. And then I am in the process of, so I have a waiting list for females in franchising. So if you go to www.femalesinfranchising.com, you can sign up and join the waiting list. And looking to launch in the next couple of months. And so I'll keep you both posted on that as well.
Thank you. It was a delight having you. There is nothing I can say that will beat what Tracy said. You've been a delight, and we really appreciate you carving out time. And for those of you, of course, listening in, make sure you comment, like, share this interview with Brittney Lincoln, and we'll see you next week on another episode of the Franchise Woman Podcast.